So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at the different types of letter that you might get in the task 1. Also we're going to look at some of those letter conventions that they're looking at, and how to plan and how to structure your task in order to get the best score that you can. Okay, we're also going to look at the difference between writing a formal letter and writing, sorry, an informal letter, in terms of the vocabulary and in terms of the phrases that you need to use. So if you have a look at this, this is our sample letter, which we're going to be writing together in a moment. So this is, it always looks like this. The task for the letter, you always have the introduction, they tell you who to write to, and there's 3 bullet points, each containing information that you need to do for, you need to include for the letter. Okay, so it's always going to look at that. And just some general information. So remember that the task 1 is a minimum of 150 words. Okay, if you write less than 150 words, then that is penalized in the marking system. Okay, however, there's no maximum word count, and it doesn't matter how much more you write. Okay, because, you know, as long as you're over 150, it's fine. So 151 words, totally acceptable. Okay. Sorry, so now, oh yeah, I'll try and go back for a moment just to show you. That's what we're going to look at today. Okay. And they do suggest that you spend 20 minutes, no more than 20 minutes on the task 1. Because you really need the task 2, you need the 40 minutes to do the task 2. Okay. I don't think so, Rama. I think you're okay. We're just starting. Task 2, remember, is worth more. It's worth twice as much as the task 1. So it's very important that you spend that time on the task 2. Okay, so try and keep the task 1 to 20 minutes. That includes a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning to plan, and 2 minutes maybe at the end to check. Okay. So as I said, we have different types of letters in the general training, and those different types of letters require a different style, okay, or a different tone. So we have formal letters, we have semi-formal, and we have personal or informal letters. So we'll look at each of those in turn in a moment, okay? But you do need, the first thing that you need to do when you get your task question is to check what kind of letter it is, because that's going to affect everything that you write, okay? Yes, you're right, Sidhu, this one is a formal letter. So we're going to do a few true-false questions about the task 1 for general training. So if you can just put up in chat whether you think this is true or false. So I think I already answered this. The letter is worth 50%, it's half. Okay, yes, you're absolutely right, Thanuja, that is not correct. It's worth 1/3 of the mark, and the task 2 is worth 2/3, exactly, Sidhu, of the mark. Okay, so it does make a difference. What about the next one? Hello, Joshua. Couple of minutes planning before you actually start to write your letter. Okay, yes, very good, Amir and Hakana. If you don't plan, then you're likely to make a lot of mistakes in the content of your letter. So it's really worth spending just a very short amount of time to organize your ideas. Okay, yes, you can do a map if you like. Hello, Prince. Hello, Attila. You're not so late, okay? Don't worry. Okay, when you're writing the letter, should you put addresses? Anything like that? Be careful. Justine. Yeah, the answer is that's false. Okay, very important. Please don't waste time writing your address or an address for the company. You're always going to start with dear. Okay, so no addresses, no dates, nothing like that. That's going to waste a lot of time. Hi guys. Okay. So it's up to you what kind of letter you write. Would you say that was true or false? Okay, yes, very good, Kathy. That is definitely false, okay? The style of letter is dictated by the question, okay? So you have to check the question and then you have to follow whatever style is required there, okay? You cannot choose what style you would like to write in. So you need to be able to cover those different styles. You need to practice those different styles. Yes, okay, very good. So those 3 bullet points, that's the key content of your letter, okay? And you know, what's great about the general training task 1 is that your structure and your content is there for you. You know, the 3 bullet points tell you what you need to put into the body of your letter, okay? So very, very important to follow those bullet points and to follow them in the order that they are in the task, okay? Don't change the order, follow the order that they give, okay? So again, I've kind of answered that. These 3 bullet points help you to structure your answer. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, each bullet point should be 1 paragraph in your letter. Okay, so 1 bullet point equals 1 paragraph in the body of the letter. Okay. What about the next one? Rather an interesting one about talking about the content, the detail. Yes, of course, you're going to have to invent the information because you don't know what letter is going to come up. So you just create, you invent all of the details that you need to use, okay? There's, okay, Prince, tone down the capitals, okay? In IELTS, in general training, there's no maths, okay? There is a little bit in academic in a way, yeah? Okay, you have to use your own name. You have to sign off with your own name. What do we think? It's not necessary. Basically, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you use your own name, you use another name. It's really not important, and the examiner really isn't going to pay any attention to, you know, to the name that's sat there at the end. Okay. Okay, having a little bit of time at the end to check your answers. Yeah, I know this is difficult. I know this is kind of an ideal situation, but you know, it's really great if you do have just a couple of minutes to check. And something very important about this checking, because if you just read through your letter again, you're unlikely to see your mistakes. You know, your brain doesn't really register the mistakes that you've made. So what you need to do is to know the kind of mistakes that you commonly make, okay? And then you look for those specific mistakes when you're doing the checking. That's much more productive for, you know, for finding mistakes than it is for, you know, just reading it through. You're unlikely to see it, okay? So yeah, know what mistakes do you make, look for those mistakes, Okay, Anil, this is very much general training. It's not for academics, so it's really up to you whether you want to stay or not. Okay, but this is the general training writing. It's not the same task. Okay, Akanksha, yes, spelling mistakes are part of the lexical resource marking criteria, so you will lose marks if you have, you know, a lot of spelling mistakes. 1 or 2 is not going to be a problem. It really depends if it affects. So let's look at those 3 different types again. Okay, so we have formal, semi-formal, and a personal letter. Okay, so if we think of the formal first of all, what kind of letter might you write? What could be an example of a formal letter that you might be asked to write in the IELTS? Maybe some things that you've seen when you've been preparing. Okay, yeah, asking for information, complaints is a very common one. Yeah, it's a kind of business letter. Letter of complaint is very common. Applying for a job is very common. Yeah, all those kind of things, asking for information. Yeah, and usually you're writing to a company. Okay, what about a semi-formal? This one's sometimes a bit less clear. Yes, okay, so it could be a very common one that comes up a lot is a letter of complaint to a neighbor. So basically semi-formal means that you know the person, you're writing to an individual, but the situation is not a nice situation. It's a bit more of a serious situation. Okay, so yes, somebody that you know, but not a close friend. Okay, I'm sorry, Attila. Yeah, so complaining to your neighbors, writing to a colleague about something, so somebody that you know at work. Yes, Kalichi, that's a very good point. Your landlord is a very common one, complaining or asking or apologizing to your landlord. Okay, so remember, it's to an individual, but it's a serious situation. Okay, and then how about personal? What kinds of letters might you write in a personal letter? Yeah, so you're writing to friends. What might be the topic of the letter? Anything you've seen? Yeah, so invitations are very common. Probably not a love letter, that might be a bit personal. But yes, an invitation, a party, asking for information, asking for help, yeah, making plans to meet up. Those kinds of things are quite common. Okay, so very important, thanking them for something, Khalid. Yes, that's a good example. Very important to think about the type of letter. Okay, so let's look at some examples. These are not the sample we're going to look at today, but just some other examples. So it says, write to the airline to complain. So what kind of letter would that be? Okay, very good. So this is a formal letter, okay? With the formal letter, you are always writing to a company, okay? You are not writing to an individual, you are writing to a company. That's important because it affects how you start and end your letter, okay? So what about this one? What kind of letter is that? Okay, absolutely, yeah, personal or informal, you can also call it. So if it's a personal letter, it will always say friend, okay? You're always writing to a friend, and invitation's a very, very common option with that one. Okay, what about this one? What kind of letter is this? Okay, yes, exactly. So it's a semi-formal letter. You're writing to an individual, you're writing to a person, but they're not a friend, they're just somebody you know, and it's kind of a serious situation. That's the difference, okay? With the semi-formal letter, tend to use more formal language, but you know, it's not as important as for the formal letter, okay? And what about this one here? Yes, okay, so again, another semi-formal one. So it's your neighbor, you know the person, but the situation is a serious situation. Okay, so you'd have to write quite formally. So this is the one that we're going to do today. We're going to basically write a model answer together. So you can see how that works. But so yes, it's a formal type of letter. So that's the first thing you do. It says company, automatically we know we're writing a formal letter, okay? Then you have to think about the purpose of the letter. Really, really important to get a good score in task achievement. You need to show the purpose of the letter clearly at the beginning, okay? So yes, this is a lost item. So you're writing to make a request. Actually, you're requesting that they find this item, okay? And then you need to think of some details, okay? So when you plan your letter, what you're focusing on after the type of letter and the purpose is the content. So you're going to write some keywords so you know what you're going to write in the letter. Then when you're writing, you're not focusing on content, you're focusing on your grammar, your vocabulary, okay? So that's another really important reason for planning your letter in advance, and your essay for task 2, same thing. Then you can focus on grammar and vocabulary and connection when you're actually doing the writing, instead of still thinking about content. That's going to confuse you, okay? The other reason for planning is that it keeps your letter very focused and well organized, okay? So yes, as Mandeep said, maybe you lost some important documents, maybe you lost a bag, a wallet. Yes, exactly, to do a leather wallet, anything like that, okay? So just make a note of what you lost. Again, then if we look at the second bullet point is where and when, okay? So again, that's, you just want to note down some information about that, okay? The more detailed, the better, okay? So this is another very important point when you're doing the letter for general training, is they want detail, they want specific detail, concrete detail. So that's very, very important, okay? Yeah, so if you say on the train, think about where exactly on the train, okay? And then again, then there's some action that you want the company to take, okay? Again, here, be specific with what you want the company to do, okay? I've seen a lot of letters and people just sort of write, I'd like you to do something, okay? That's not enough. You need to be specific. So what could you ask the company to do? Okay, very good, Shahab. You could ask them to check the security cameras. You could ask them to return the item. Okay, so, you know, be specific with the information. That's really, really important. So we've already done our planning, okay? That's something else you could do. So what we're going to look at now is the structure for the letter. Okay, so this is always going to be the same, no matter what type of letter or what topic you're asked to write about, okay? So the first thing you're going to have is your greeting, okay? Then you're going to have like a sort of introduction, which is the purpose of the letter. Really important to have that clear at the beginning. Okay. Then your body. And if you remember what I said, each bullet point is going to be one paragraph in your body. So 3 bullet points, 3 body paragraphs, clearly related to the 3 bullet points. Okay. Then we need to have a closing statement. So that's going to be in a separate paragraph, but it's just going to be 1 sentence probably. And that's just part of the letter conventions. And then you sign off the letter. Okay, so let's look at the kind of information you have for here. So formal letter, what are we going to say? Dear Sir, okay, perfect. Dear Sir, Madam, okay. That's the only way, I'm coming to it, Amit, that's the only way to start a formal letter, okay? You don't need to do anything else, just put Dear Sir, Madam. Yeah, okay, then we're gonna have the purpose. And again, these are letter conventions, okay? So one of the things that they're looking for the task achievement is the correct letter conventions. Because they're conventions, it means they're set phrases, which means you don't want to change them in any way, okay? So greeting, dear sir, madam. Purpose, I am writing to, okay? We always write this information. Writing something else doesn't show that you have more interesting vocabulary. It shows that you don't know the letter conventions. So you will lose a lot of marks for task achievement, okay? So just remember to use the set phrases that we have, okay? Then in terms of the body paragraphs, so you're going to introduce the purpose or the topic of each paragraph, and then you're going to give the detail, okay? That's fine, Shahab, that's fine. Yes, Sarah, we're going to look at the greetings in more detail in a moment, okay? So body paragraphs, introduce your topic, concrete detail. Remember, you need to have lots of specific detail. Okay, then we have this kind of general end sentence. It will depend on the type of letter, but because you're writing here to ask for something, then hearing from you, I look forward to hearing from you, is going to be an appropriate ending. There could be other types of endings, other types of letters, like letters of apology. They would probably have some other kind of information, okay? And then the sign off, yes, you're ahead of me, Shabab. So we have yours sincerely, or as Shabab put, yours faithfully, okay? I wouldn't put to whom it may concern. We don't tend to use that anymore, okay? So yours sincerely or yours faithfully at the end, okay? So we're going to look at the letter conventions in more detail, but this is your structure, okay? So you've basically got, if you think of the body as one thing, you've got 5 parts to your letter, and they should all be quite separate. I would always leave a line between paragraphs, just to make it really clear to the examiner that you're starting a new paragraph. If you don't leave a line, sometimes it's a bit difficult to tell whether it's a new paragraph or a different one, okay? Yeah, just write your name then at the end, okay? Again, the examiner really isn't paying that much attention to the name, okay? So there are other things to